This reading is from Affirmations for Self-Healing by Swami Kriyananda, entitled Sharing. True happiness is found not in possessions, but in sharing what one has with others. Thus is one's self-identity expanded as he learns to live in and enjoy a greater reality. People who gladly share with others feel themselves bathed by a constant inner stream of happiness. Sharing is the doorway through which the soul escapes the prison of self-preoccupation. It is one of the clearest paths to God. And let's affirm together. What I give to others, I give not away. For my larger reality, it remains ever mine. I am happy in the happiness of all. What I give to others, I give not away. For my larger reality, it remains ever mine. I am happy in the happiness of all. And a little quieter, what I give to others, I give not away. For my larger reality, it remains ever mine. I am happy in the happiness of all. And whispering what I give to others, I give not away. For my larger reality, it remains ever mine. I am happy in the happiness of all. And silently, what I give to others, I give not away. For my larger reality, it remains ever mine. I am happy in the happiness of all. And please pray silently with me. O infinite giver, teach me to find happiness through others. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday Satsang. This is a reading from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This is called The Mystery of Avatara, or Divine Incarnation. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter states, as we saw last week, O Bharata, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate on earth. Taking visible form, I come to destroy evil and to reestablish virtue. What is the mystery of this divine manifestation? Great avatars such as Krishna and Jesus Christ are born as babies, even as we all are. They take human form and go through normal human experiences as they grow from childhood to adulthood. They eat, they play. They may seem to suffer sickness and disappointment like the rest of us. In what way are they different from other human beings? The important thing to understand is that even as they are like us, so are we also like them. Their realization can be ours too. They come on earth to show us our own divine potential. The difference lies not in the manner of their manifestation on earth, but in the consciousness with which they are born. All things are condensations, so to speak, of the cosmic vibration Om. Described by St. John's Gospel as the Word, most human beings, however, are unconscious of their divine origin. The avatars, on the other hand, come consciously as manifestations of that divine reality. As the Gospel says in the 1st chapter, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. And this is a reading from Whispers from Eternity, a book of poems and prayers by Paramahansa Yogananda. And this is entitled, I vow never again to turn my gaze from thee. I take the sacred vow, never will I lower my love's gaze below the eyebrow horizon of my constant thoughts of thee. Never will I turn my uplifted inner sight away from thee. Never will I let my mind dwell on anything that reminds me not of thee. I will disdain the nightmare of ignorant behavior. I will court all dreams of noble achievement, those of love, kindness, understanding, for they are thy dreams. Though I dream many dreams, wakefully I will ever think of thee. In the sacred fire of constant remembrance, kept ever alight on my soul's altar, I will ever behold thy presence with the watchful eyes of devotional love. Thy grace has shown me that the dualities of health and sickness, life and death, joy and sorrow are but passing fantasies. I am finished with those eternally self-canceling delusions. I am persuaded at last that there is but one abiding reality, thy eternal, ever-conscious, ever-new, ever-thrilling, infinite bliss. And one more reading from God Alone, from the Life and Letters of a Saint, Sister Gyanamata. Sister Gyanamata was Yogananda's chief and highest woman disciple. And she wrote a letter to one of her sisters who was having a difficult time. Dear sister, your letter touched my heart. The words our master wrote me when I had been in the hospital a few days apply to you at this time equally well. They are paraphrased as follows. All the devotion, wisdom, and faith that you have acquired are now being tested by God. You must now use all your spiritual acquirements to pass the test of God. Keep your wisdom light ever burning during the darkness of this test. And this is what I pray for you, that you ever remember and love him and forget the body. Then Master reminded me of the sufferings of the saints and of the soldiers in the war, and he gave me no sympathy at all. Sometimes it seemed he did not even understand me. When I thanked him for help he had given me, he replied shortly that I ought to be able to help myself. Thus God spoke to me through him. I advise you to read the lives of the saints, considering what they suffered, yes, even imposed upon themselves, that dying to self that they might live in God. Consider especially St. Teresa of Avila and the glorious example she left behind her. You reminded me once that you are not St. Teresa. True, but there are ways in which you can imitate her. It is said of her, she considered that much of the time of the saints of the desert was passed without any consolation whatsoever. She was continually reminding herself of God, and God said to her, during this life, the true gain consists not in striving after greater joy in me, but in doing my will. This ties in with what you have often heard me say, that the degree of our realization is proved not by the lights we see in meditation or the visions we have of the saints, but in what we can endure in the hard, cold light of day. Think on these things, dear, and rely on God, who is within you as he is within St. Teresa, to support you to the end. Sister Gyanamata is such a great saint, and Master said that she actually is the same soul as Sister Teresa of St. Avila, of Avila. So she was very close to her and read all of her writings and meditated on her life a lot, and so there's a lot of similarities in their karmas and their realization. And recently, I've read a book, parts of a book called The Saints That Move the World. And this is a book that was recommended by Yogananda. He loved this book. He actually said, I love this book. And Sister Gyanamata used to read it and quote from it all the time. And so I've been reading it recently, and most importantly, I was reading the life of St. Augustine. There's 5 saints in the book. St. Teresa of Avila is one of them. But St. Augustine is a very high soul of the Christian faith. And Master talks about St. Anthony in the book, and he also talks about him in some of his talks. But in St. Augustine's life, it really touched me because he started out as a very worldly man, as a very man that was troubled because he just could not get away from his own impulses, from his own habits, from his own intentions. He was bound by the world, and he was full of lust and competition and hung around with the wrong people for years. He was a very unhappy man, but he kept striving and striving and striving for something within him that kept saying, this isn't it. This isn't it. So then he'd go over here and try alcohol. No, that wasn't it. Then there was the women. No, that wasn't it. Then there was the career. No, that wasn't it. But always this voice inside of him would not leave him alone until finally, when he was 32 years old. That's a long time to be struggling in that way. He finally came to his conversion. And one of the reasons, there are 2 reasons why he was helped in this. His mother, Saint Monica, was a Christian, and he lived in the 3rd century. So this is like way back near Christ's time. The vibrations of Christ were very powerful on the earth at that time. And it's just like us in Master right now. The vibrations are really strong, so you want to take advantage of it. But his mother was a very deep Christian, and she prayed for him and made him her sadhana. She never, ever gave up on him and always, always prayed for him. And another was that he was reading the Bible that his mother always put in front of him all the time, whenever she could. And he opened it up one day to the life of the readings of St. Paul. And St. Paul was talking about St. Anthony. The St. Anthony of the desert that Master talks about, who was a monk. And St. Anthony, at a very young age, in his early 20s, turned toward God. And all he was doing was sitting in church one day, and the priest said, leave everything, sell all you have, give it to the poor, and follow me. And he woke up. And he did that exact thing. He walked out of the church. He sold everything he had. He said goodbye to his family, all of his friends, everything, and he went to the desert. And he started meditating. For 20 years he was in that desert. But in the beginning, his inspiration was so strong. Christ was in him so strong. His guru was saying, do this, do this. And he listened to the advice of his guru in his heart, and he went and did this. And so for 20 years he meditated in that. 20 years. That's a long time to be in a cave in the desert with no food, and you can imagine, the elements alone would drive you away after the first night when the electricity went out. Where's the internet? We get so upset. 20 years he was there. And they say a black crow came every morning and put a loaf of bread in the front of his cave so that he could survive. But finally he just got discouraged, because he did what God said, and the inspiration started dwindling, and he started thinking of himself, and he started thinking, why did I do this? Did I waste my life? And all of the monsters started coming. The negative monsters started coming in. Why me, Lord? Where are you, Lord? Why did you leave me? You led me down this path, and now you're gone. Where's my inspiration? I'm all alone. Why are you doing this to me? Until finally, 20 years, Christ appeared to him, and that beautiful light came and lit his consciousness. And Christ said, Anthony, I've always been with you, every moment. I've never left you. That is so beautiful, and that is what changed St. Augustine. And so when St. Augustine started to be converted, he threw himself on the ground and he cried tears and tears and tears for hours. He was so remorseful for his life. He was so ashamed. All of the things that he had done, he just couldn't face himself. And he just he opened that book and he thought about St. Anthony and he said, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And so he too sold everything, moved back to his hometown, became a bishop, a humble priest, and he started serving the poor, and he started becoming a great saint. He wrote many things, but one of the most things, the Confessions of St. Augustine, he wrote these confessions, and he wrote in detail the power of Maya over his mind for those 33 years. And he wanted to share with people how it happens, how we can love God and want something more and yearn for the light, but still have a worldly life. How can that be? How can we conquer ourselves? How can we get beyond these negative thoughts that very subtly pull us away and say, oh, that's imagination. This is real. This is the physical world. We see this. People are very happy. I'm looking around me. They're all happy. This is real. And he wanted to show people the struggle, so he wrote this amazing book. And Swamiji talks about this book. It's called Confessions of St. Augustine. And you read it and you think, wow, he went through the same thing I went through. It's the story of the soul. Everybody goes through it. Everybody has to come to that point where they choose light over darkness, where they choose God over the world. There comes a point in your spiritual life where in that moment, the karma is gone and light comes in and you feel free inside. And you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you've made the right move. You know it. In that beginning, in that conversion moment, in that first time you met Master, in that first time you read the book, the first time you met a devotee that was on the path, that was enlightened, the first time you meditated, you feel like, oh, it's real, this is real. And Divine Mother, in that moment, brings you home. And you're home. And you don't understand where you've been gone for so long. Why was there the argument in the first place? This is real. The light is real. The love is real. The qualities that you've been yearning for are finally satisfied in your heart. And you do have that experience. And then once you have that experience, then the Maya creeps in. And then you have 20 years of fighting for it all the time, fighting for it, trying to get your habits right, trying to let go of this, trying to let go of that tendency of I, me, mine. How does it affect me? What's my future? How can I survive in this world? You fight against those things. But in this day and age, we've been given Kriya Yoga. That is a technique that will not only give you that feeling of divine love, but it will get rid of those tendencies in your mind that will pull you away from the reality of God within you. That's what Kriya Yoga does. The more you practice Kriya with devotion, the more you feel that light growing in you, and that becomes your reality. And so you can go through the tests of life, knowing that this too shall pass. This too is going to pass. This test is going to be over. But what's not going to be over? Your soul. Your soul united with God, it's eternal, it's infinite. There is no end to your soul. And that's why that still small voice within us will never be quiet. Will never. And will always tell you, you sure? You want to go this way? Or it will say, no, this isn't it. Kriya Yoga gives us the ability to understand and to listen to that voice within. We need to begin to listen and really feel and trust that intuition. Master said that intuition is the soul's power to know God. Isn't that beautiful? The soul's power. We all have that power to know God. We're all souls. And that's the largest part of us. That's the only part of us is our soul. The soul's power to know God. We need to listen. Kriya Yoga helps us to listen. It's not about seeing the spiritual eye and floating away in ecstasy right off the bat. Those things will happen. That's a promise from the Guru. But if it's not happening, it doesn't mean nothing's happening. What's happening is that inwardly the Guru has taken away your karma. Every Kriya is worth 1 year of karma. Think of that. 1 year, 1 Kriya done with devotion. Okay, the Guru took that karma away. We don't have to work that one out. This one's gone too. That tendency is gone. All of a sudden you're not eating so much sugar. All of a sudden cigarettes go. All of a sudden alcohol's gone. All of a sudden you're happier than you ever were. All of a sudden you're more generous. All of a sudden you begin to share. All of a sudden you begin to see yourself as part of a larger reality. That's what Kriya does. That's what the Guru works through. He works through the techniques that he's given us. And so when we practice them with devotion, the Guru, he's so happy. And he might even take 2 years for 1 Kriya if you have the right attitude. We don't know what he's taking away. We don't know. But we do know that he said we will never get a greater test than our ability to overcome that test. Never. And why is that? We have the Guru. We can give it to the Guru. That's why. We can't do it. We don't know our karma. We don't know our strength. But when you align your will with the Guru's will and you align your strength with the Guru, he can take it. And he will. That's the promise. That's the promise. He's the dispeller of darkness. Devi, and it doesn't happen like in a grand thing. It's every day, every hour. You know, the test comes. Somebody you don't like comes into the room. Don't run away. Send them light. Don't leave. This is an opportunity to send light. If you see somebody that's ill or you know about somebody that's having a hard time, send them light. That's the Guru coming through you. He's using you as an instrument the more you open up. We've got to do that because only then, that's what self-realization really is. It's becoming one with everybody. Letting go of your petty desires. Letting go of your political ideas about where you should be because you've been so important and you've studied so hard. Those things go. Honestly, God's not going to say at the end of your life, were you a topper? You know, he doesn't care. It's the least of my brethren. When you help the least of my brethren, then I will manifest myself to you. You know, Devi wrote this beautiful touch of light. I encourage all of you to read the newsletter. Thank you to Mehek, who is now our new newsletter person. And it's titled, Leave It Better. Maybe some of you read it. But it's such a beautiful, simple attitude towards life. And there was a woman that just came to Ananda Village, and everywhere she went, she saw every corner of the community uplifting and beautiful and people smiling, and she said she's never seen anything like it because she said no matter where she went, whenever she showed up, there they were trying to make it better. And so Devi wrote a beautiful blog about it, and she said make it better, and she said that she was taking her garbage out. We all have to take our garbage out in America. And we have to take it down to the bins and put it in the recycling bins. And then there was this hose on the ground, and it was in the mud. It was in the dirt. And so she just got back in the car after she put her garbage in the bins. And then she looked at the hose, and she said, oh my gosh, I could fix that. So she got out of the car. She took the hose. It was all muddy. She cleaned it off, and then she put it on the little round thing so the next person that came would be able to very easily take the hose and use it. Such a tiny, simple thing. Tiny, simple thing. But she got back in her car, and she said she felt bliss. Where did that come from? Where did that come from? She listened to what Master was saying. He said, go fix that hose. He didn't say, go fix that hose and I'll give you bliss. He said, go fix the hose. And so she did, totally unattached, just fixed it. She got back in her car and she felt Master's presence. It was such a beautiful story. She said, leave it better than it was. And she said, at the end of your life, again, we want to say, what was my life like? Did I leave it better? Did I leave this earth better? Did I leave my family better? Did I leave my job better? Did I leave anything better? But it's in the little things like that it matters. It's not this great. You don't have to be the one that brings in 1,000 people to all the classes and whatever. You know, we have these grandiose ideas of what it means to be powerful and spiritual. But what it really means is to be in tune with the Guru every moment of every day. That's the spiritual path. Then you realize he's never gone. No matter what you're going through, what test you have, he's there. And he's going to give you that bliss if you listen to what he says. We had we were at Ananda, when Rose was a little girl in school, we had, I was in charge of what was called the service club. And so when she was in 5th or 6th grade, I would take the girls Tuesday afternoon and we would decide for the month what service projects we would do that nobody would know about. And so one of the things that we did is that we went into town, which was 40 miles away, once a week, to a convalescent hospital. And each girl adopted one of the patients in the hospital. And they would write letters, they would sit on the bed, they would tell stories, they would read to the patient, they would connect with this patient. And we did that for a whole year. And they became very close to these patients. And the patients' lives were transformed. The girls would bring them flowers. And it was just so beautiful to see. And the nurses and doctors said that was a highlight of their week. We never told anybody about it. We would just go there on Tuesday. That would be our day. And they developed these relationships. Another thing that we did is that they wanted to plant flowers in all the parts of the community where nobody was planting flowers and that were lonely. And so they took these tulip bulbs, daffodil bulbs, because daffodils are the first flowers that come up in the spring. And every Tuesday they would just go plant them all over the community where it was lonely, where no plants were, where nobody paid any attention. And then in the springtime, all these tulips came up. And not tulips, but daffodils, they multiply over the years. You don't have to keep planting them. So by the end of their time at school, there were daffodils all over the community. It was so beautiful. And they never told anybody who planted the daffodils. But they were so, just like, wow, look what happens when you serve selflessly and nobody knows. There's flowers. Master said that in nature, that Divine Mother talks to us through flowers, the most of all in nature. Just beautiful little things like that touch the hearts of the souls in this planet that need it. We don't have to think on a grand scale. We have to think about joy. We have to think about love. And we have to think about not being alone, ever. We are never alone. Last night I saw this amazing video on the YouTube. It just popped up. And Master does that to me a lot. If I'm studying something or doing something, there's Master he's either singing or doing a wedding, or there's Master. But this time it was a disciple of Master. And his name was Bob Raymer. And we know Bob Raymer because he came to Ananda, and a remarkable man. He was a direct disciple of Master in his lifetime. He was remarkable for his humility. That's why he was remarkable. He was the most humble, shy, sweet, kind, loving person. You just wanted to be with him. No judgment, just so calm. And so he told the story of how he first met Master. And I'll share it with you. It's just so touching. So he was a real worldly man, and he used to drink martinis, and, all the way up till the day he met Master. And he had this idea all the time. He was thinking, like St. Augustine, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. And so one day his friend said, do you want to go meet Master? He said, yeah. He was a very wealthy man, and so he had a private plane. So he flew in to Los Angeles in a private plane. Master was in a hotel, and the Biltmore Hotel. And so he went to go meet Master, but he said he was so nervous. He was just so nervous because the closer he got to this idea, he thought, oh my God, Master's reading my mind. He knows what I've done. Up to the moment, he's not going to want to see me. How could I have done that? And he's got this remorse about his life. He was so embarrassed to go see the Master, and he thought, no, I'm not going to do this. It's too hard to be faced with myself. And so then there was a knock on the hotel, and then one of the disciples said, well, Master will see you. And his heart stopped. He said, okay, I'll go. So he went in there, and there was Master opened the door. So touching. Master opened the door. He opened his arms, and he hugged him and held him to his chest. And he said he felt so much love, so much love. So he said it was completely transformed in that love. And Master didn't let go of him for the longest time. Just imagine. And he said he was completely, just taken aback. And then Master sat in a chair, and he sat in a chair opposite Master. And then Master didn't say anything. He said, oh my God, he's reading my mind. I know he's reading my past, and he's going to want me to leave. And and he was just, how we all are. And so Master said, kneel down in front of me. And so he knelt down. And Master took his hands. He said, put your hands like this. And so Master put his hands over his hands. And then Master, for 5 minutes, invoked the gurus. He said, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Jesus Christ, over and over, Divine Mother, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Sri Yukteswar, Guru. He just said it over and over for 5 minutes and moved his hands like that, and his hands were over his hands. And he said he felt, when that happened, that the Kundalini at the base of his spine, he didn't even know it was Kundalini. There was this force that went up his spine to his brain, and it opened up his mind, and he realized that he was a part of all that is. But it took a long time, 5 minutes, for the gurus to be there. He invoked the presence and the power of the gurus. And then he went home. He said he was completely changed. He went back to his hotel, and he sat down to do the Kriya. And, the next day, actually, he got Kriya. He kept asking Master, can I have Kriya? Can I have Kriya? And Master ignored him and wouldn't talk to him. He said, well, okay, obviously he's not going to give me Kriya. Then he asked him again. Master ignored him. Still, he said, one more time, can I have Kriya? And Master said, okay, I'll give it to you tomorrow. Okay. And he's just kind of angry at him. And he thought, oh my God, what was all that about? Just the contrast of the love and the rejection. So then the next day, he was he got Kriya, and then he went to his room to practice this Kriya Yoga. So he's sitting on his chair, and he's practicing Kriya, and again, that energy just came up to his brain. He fell off his chair, laughing and crying, and he just didn't know how to stop. It was just pouring out of him, laughing and crying, and this joy, and he said, in that moment, I knew this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been looking for all my life. And he felt that he had just come home. And so that is for each one of us. We have maybe not that extensive of an experience when we practice Kriya, but when we come into the presence of our Guru for the first time, we're home. We're home. We don't need to search anymore in this world for anything. We don't need to worry that our tests are bigger than we are. We don't need to put a time frame on our karma. We don't need to do anything. We need to rest in the Guru. Imagine that that's Master hugging you. He's hugging you. Every time you sit to meditate, he's hugging you. He's holding you close. He's saying, love me, love Divine Mother, and I will take you there. He will never give up his job about us. Never get discouraged. Never get discouraged. Master said we should be joyful and happy at all times. And we should as disciples. Because no matter what we're going through, look what we have. Look what we have. We have the path that will take us directly to Divine Mother. If we're patient, don't resist your karma. Don't resist your life. This is all from God. And he only just gives us a little. He just gives us a little. Then he'll take the rest. We really have to, as disciples, remember we're not alone. That beautiful story, I'm going to close with this. It's called The Footsteps, and maybe some of you have heard it, and I've said it before, but I just love this story. It's about this man who was very close to Christ, and he lived near the beach. And Christ would appear to him. And when he wasn't there next to him, there would be his footsteps in the sand next to his. And so they would go for long walks on the beach, and always those footprints would be there, those footprints in the sand. His footprints and Christ's footprints. And he felt Christ with him. He was having these amazing experiences. And then his life went on, and he started really going through a tremendous test. It challenged his faith. He was afraid that he was alone. There was no relief. He was crying. He just could not get past this darkness. And he just was so mad because it seemed like Christ was gone. You know, there you were, and now you're gone. And so he was mad at Christ. And so he went to the beach, and he would walk, and there would be no footsteps. And then he would just say, okay, that was that. I guess I'm alone. I'll live through it, but I guess I'm alone. And then all of a sudden, one day, there were the footsteps, and Christ appeared to him. And this is a real story. This is a true story. Christ does appear to people who are very devoted and have that blessing. He said, Christ, where were you? Where were you when I needed you? You're gone. I mean, never have felt so alone in my life. And Christ said, well, I was carrying you. That's why there was only one set of footsteps. So just like Master hugging that disciple, Christ carrying that disciple, all of us have that because we have let the light into our lives. And no matter what happens, we will never be separate from that light. Our awareness of it will grow and grow as we become closer, more humble, more selfless in our service, more just not worrying about what people think of us and our status in this world. The world will leave us, definitely. We're going to leave the world someday, but the Guru will never leave us. And he promised that at the end of our life, he's going to be there, or one of the Gurus, to help us over to the other side. So never lose faith, never get discouraged. Always think of others first, and remember that we are never alone, no matter what we go through in this lifetime. So God bless you, and thank you all for coming. I'd like to listen to a song, if I remembered my phone, right before we do the Aarti.
The spiral stairways of wakefulness magic law will I endorse. God, every night in time of deepest sleep, when my peace dreams and calls, joy, joy, my joy comes singing evermore. God, God. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, meditating, chanting, divinely loving, my soul will constantly hum, unheard by any.